Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Philly Phone Book, a podcast archive. I am your host, Gideon Caro McDonald, and with me today is a wonderful friend of mine, an old friend of mine, a musician, a writer, and an all-around good guy. We got Emmet Rigg in the house.
Hello. Hi. It's really good to be in Gideon's house.
Yeah.
In Gideon's guest room.
In my guest room. That's where we record these, by the way. In our house is guest room. It's a good time.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome to the show, Emmet.
It's great to be here, folks.
How you been, man?
Been pretty good these days.
Yeah.
You know, second month of the year. Sometimes I always think when you start the year, good or bad, it can determine what kind of year you're going to have in some way sometimes.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Not all the time, though. Sometimes some years can start really good and then real But, you know, that happens sometimes.
That happens.
That's life.
That's life.
But so far, pretty good.
Well, I know you very well, but that does not mean that the listeners know you very well. And so let's give them an opportunity to get to know you.
Yeah.
So why don't you give them a little bit of an introduction, who you are, your background, and what you see yourself as in this, in Philly's art community, and a little bit of how we know each other.
Sure.
Then there's a lot to get it
through.
through.
All right. So my name is Emmet Rigg. If you were listening, which I know you are, I am a Philadelphia native, and I lived and still, grew up basically about 20 feet from Gideon and his family. Yeah, we'll get into that part later. But I'm a musician. I've been playing with Gideon, musically that is, for about 11 years now, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
I guess, yeah.
It seems like
it's about 2014. Because I remember we were also in the same class that year, and that was like 6th grade.
Yeah.
Which is like when I sort of remember like really getting like close with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm a musician. Down in an ale. And I'm in this band with Gideon called the Jet Planes, and we formed it together in high school, and it sort of stemmed out of a lot of bands that we had had a lot of good time playing in for over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And I think after doing that for about 4 or 5 years, playing in bands doing covers, we were like, got a good idea of how we want to start our own music project, as they say in the biz.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
what do you play primarily? Because you play a lot.
Yeah.
Like, what would you say? What would you call yourself?
I guess a guitarist. Yeah. Guitarist. Yeah, because I write on the guitar. I'd say about 90% of the time. With a few times I might write on the piano, or just bass, which happens like as the 2% of the time. But sometimes it happens. Or just sometimes a little beat. But I would say primarily the guitar. Like I played that. I'd say most of the time. Yeah.
Totally.
So
yeah, to elaborate, we did grow up together. You are a Philly native along with me. Normally this question, as so far in the podcast at least, has been about why people chose Philly.
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't necessarily get to choose. But we did choose if we wanted to stay.
Yeah.
And we both chose to do so. So I think what I want to know is why? Like, what about Philly is so special to you? Like, especially being part of its culture from day one.
Yeah.
Like, what has it taught you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it really has, and I don't know if everybody in Philadelphia would agree with me on this, because I know everybody has their own opinion. But to me, Philadelphia has the unique energy of being kind of like New York, in that you can kind of get anything you want instantly. Like I've always had access to walk to the playground, as you know too, the grocery store, record store, my job. I've always had to, always been able to work to that, or bike. It's one of the reasons why I don't have a license, because as you same with you,
Emmet and I cannot drive.
Yeah.
Have you been behind the wheel?
Not well. If the police are not listening to me, I guess they can't. I mean, yeah. No, I guess I have, but like in Warren, PA, when there's like nobody there, and
Yeah.
I've driven around my grandfather's block just
Right.
and a couple of times like in parking lots, but I don't need to.
Don't need to.
Yeah, and that was about when I was about 16. My mom was just like, "You want to go for a spin?" I was just like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was not that exciting.
Yeah. No, yeah. This city is very special in that it's walkable.
Yeah,
Like not a lot of cities are.
but I don't
A
think.
lot of big metropolitan ones are.
But what I don't think that's different about New York is I don't feel that it's super chaotic in that I think there is a certain sense of like quietness and laid backness to about Philly, and I think that's also true in our personalities too. I think if you were to think of a stereotypical Philly person, sometimes I think they can be a bit aggressive like your New Yorker, but I think generally, I mean, there's the reason why we do call it the city of brotherly love.
Yeah.
So that's how I see it. I think that, and I think the community too is one thing. I probably the number one reason why I haven't left is because, the people I work with, which includes, not just you, but like, people like Mike, John Fay, just long list of people. I'm just like, well, these, people that I kind of, want to work with. And this is, 5 years ago, me thinking about this stuff. I'm like, I don't really know why I would want to, go to say another city unless it would be something like New York, but I don't want to financially do that right now. And I have what I want here in a sense,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. So that's why, and I love the culture of it, and in that sense for two,
From an early age, it taught us what we wanted to do, and at that point, we got what we needed connection wise.
Yeah, I know. If it wasn't for Rocky, I wouldn't be a boxer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, and from that point, we grew up in Bella Vista.
Oh yeah. The Italian market.
Italian market. Both
Rocky's area, hence my joke there, folks.
Yeah. Watch Rocky. If you're listening to a Philly centric podcast, I feel like Rocky's gonna get brought up here and there. Just go and watch it.
Truly,
It's a good movie. And in full honesty, I only watched it until recently.
It's okay.
Yeah, and it was excellent.
I remember I saw it at 9.
Yeah.
Because I'm one of those kids, and I remember I laughed my ass off because it's funny in parts, and it's also very sad in times, and it's also story of the underdog.
Story of the underdog.
That's what I always think. It's just always about like it's a cliche, but your dreams. If you have something in your head that you can envision, it's gonna happen. I think that's a lot of how my outlook on life kind of is at times. I feel like if you're if you envision something or some sort of dream or idea or whatever, there's no reason why you can't
make it happen.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Rocky is one of those movies that does it. And I think Philly's like that a lot too, in some way, because it is the underdog city.
Not anymore with this Super Bowl, baby.
That's right.
No, but yeah, I fully agree.
Yeah. And it literally is the underdog compared to New York, like geographically.
True. Hey,
I was not even trying to do that.
A little bit of a map lesson.
There you go.
But yeah, we grew up in the Italian market together, and from that point on, we went to school together. We went to William M. Meredith School, elementary.
Yep.
Well, K through 8, and so we were there for 9 years of our lives.
2008 to we were the class of 2017.
Yeah, we were.
Yikes.
Yeah. Elementary school, middle school. It sounds
also very long.
Shout out to those people.
Yeah.
If you're listening.
Oh,
If some people that are listening from our Meredith days, thank you for tuning in and checking in on what I'm up to. I appreciate that.
Hi, Meredith friends.
Yeah.
Remember me?
Yeah, Emmet Rigg.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah. And then I think to your point of, opportunity provided by the city, we both ended up going to the same high school as well.
That's correct.
Girard Academic Music Program, also known as GAMP. Shout out to our GAMP folks.
Yeah.
If you're checking in on me, that's surprising. No, I'm kidding. It's nice to also have you all listening. If you are.
Yeah. Hi, GAMP friends.
Yeah, I think we have a very unique friendship in the sense that we've seen each other through every stage of life.
Yeah.
Which is very cool.
Yeah.
And insane.
Yeah, I think it's unique, and I was actually thinking about this on the way down here. For us, and then what's different about you that say what isn't different for like say like Sam or someone like that, or Lulu,
Melville?
or yeah,
Shout out
or
Sam Melville.
yeah, or Lulu or someone like
Shout out
that,
Lupine
who you were
McVeigh.
who you were like close to, but you didn't see them after after
Yeah,
middle
we
school.
didn't we
Yeah,
didn't go to the same high school together. Yep.
exactly. Yeah, or even plus I'm also including someone like Spencer in there too.
Yeah, shout out Spencer Wonder. Look at
Mr.
that.
Wonder. Yeah,
Love you, buddy.
yeah, and I think because of that, in some way, it's like I was thinking like, all right, you definitely saw like my like whatever you want to call it, gray years, awkward years,
Yeah.
the years that one has in one adolescence that are awkward. And I saw it. It was interesting because I think if you would probably agree, because I definitely heard you say this, and I've said this too. Mine were definitely Meredith. Yours probably high school. Would you say?
Yeah, I would
Yeah,
say so.
which is
Certain
right. Which
certain parts of
I
it.
think was in some way I don't know. I think that actually led for a unique balance in some way because I remember
Mm,
I don't know, not that we were going through, obviously different things emotionally,
yeah.
what we were having to our challenges, I should say. But I think in some way, I'm sure I probably learned I don't know what specifically, but I'm sure whatever we both saw from each other, I'm sure probably affected, our relationship in some way. I
Yeah.
don't really know what it would be, but like
Well,
in terms of just making it like okay, I don't know.
it's a cool
Yeah,
thought. I didn't think about it that way until now, but in the sense that by the time that we were in high school, we were able to back each other up
oh yeah,
because with Meredith growing up, we were able to sort of find one another, especially with where you were through music.
yeah,
And, we started to do Blue Bond.
yeah.
Shout out Blue Bond Guitars for
Blue Bond
literally
guitars.
building
You
us,
guys are the code of the road.
for building us from the ground up.
Yeah,
Um,
you guys are the code of the. You guys are like our Bible for real.
Truly,
Yeah,
yeah. And from that point on, we were able to forge a friendship that then was able to go into high school. And when
yeah.
I was at my low points, you were already pretty figured out, or in the
For
sense
the
that
most part, I think
you knew what you
yeah,
wanted to do,
yeah,
and I
yeah,
was still
yeah,
figuring all that stuff
yeah,
out.
yeah. I think for me
Because
with
you've been a musician since day one.
yeah, and that's sort of the thing. I think for me is see I always knew that you regardless of whether you wanted to be a musician or whether you wanted to go into acting, and obviously you've brought both of those roads together in some way, but I obviously knew that you came from an artsy family and you
Yeah.
had that background, so automatically I was like, and obviously like as I've said to you and for all those viewers listening that now know our location, it's like obviously if I see your parents and it's like okay, I see, you know, literally how you're being. I'm like, this is cool. This is how I'm. This is like,
Yeah.
we're cool weirdos, as I always like to
Yeah.
say. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like I think if anybody was to see that at Meredith, you could definitely tell that by looking at not only just us, but just like our family. It's like our family. Like I think it's a lot of that built us for who we are in some way, a lot for our personalities and for our interests too. And
100%.
obviously, the music that comes from my family, and obviously I know for yours too. And none of my parents are really much musicians. It's kind of again the same thing with with for you guys in some way, but
Your dad is a huge music
that's the
fan, though.
thing. My dad has a big appreciation, and I will just say this, and I know I've said this to you before too. Like you, obviously your brother, long list of people that I could talk music with, but in terms of like someone who's like a non-musician, my dad, jeez,
Yeah.
like he's got, yeah, it's like I don't know, it's my dad's pretty. He just has a certain, I don't know, it's unique, and I've never really met another person who's not a musician, and anybody who is a musician that has talked to my dad has also kind of said the same thing too. It's like your dad like really like just knows his stuff, and he doesn't even really know like technical terms too, because he's
Yeah.
always asking me like, oh, what's that instrument being played? Like, is that like a synthesizer? And like, what's on the guitar there? It's like, he doesn't know that, but he just has like he just loves to listen to it and loves to know about it in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So he's a history teacher, so I'm sure he just likes to, learn, which
Yeah.
I like to do a lot too, learn. But anyway, the music, having, as Gideon was just saying, my rough years kind of were from about, I'd say 9, which is like 3rd grade, to I'd say like maybe 6th grade, which is like when I started to like, I would say I never was not. I was not a shy kid, and I was not a quiet kid.
No.
I just did not really like to talk to kids my own age. I liked the adults, and
You were an old soul.
yep,
As
yeah.
people put it.
Yeah, when you are like that, and also I got along well with teachers, and as Gideon was just saying, the teachers at Meredith still are probably some of I would put them on the list of some of the most influential people that I ever had. Yeah. Oh yeah.
We got Mr. McCollum.
We got Mr. Ham,
We
Miss
got Mr.
Bradley.
Ham, Miss Bradley. Oh, rest in
Yeah,
peace, Miss
rest
Bradley.
in
We
peace,
love you,
Miss Bradley. You were incredible. Yeah.
Uh,
Well, those.
Mr. LeShock, Mr. Hollis,
Oh yeah, Coach Theo.
Coach
I'd throw him.
Theo,
Christopher Theodore, the
Christopher
legend.
Theodore,
Yeah.
the legend, and to the whole Meredith
Yeah,
family.
Miss Overton,
Miss
everybody,
Overton. Mhm.
Miss Zabak, y'all are good people. Yeah.
Yeah.
And funny enough, I'll share this because I've probably never actually shared this story with you, Gideon. My earliest memory of you, I think,
Oh God.
is it was. Do you think you know?
No.
All right,
I don't think so.
Great. It's not like important
Because
or anything.
it would have been
Kindergarten,
Yeah.
yes. So here's what happened. So it was the second day of school. It was in
Gotcha.
the morning, and I was at my house in that little alley where you come out, and I was with my mom and my sister, who I guess my sister was walking at the time because she would have been about 3. So and my dad not there, and here you come holding your mom's hand, your mom pushing Toby, about
Yeah.
6 weeks old,
Right.
and I remember I turned and I remember I said, "Are you in Miss Munich's class?" Because I had seen you the day before, probably at like recess or whatever, and you were just like, "Yeah, I'm Gideon," and then we just walked to school together,
Aw,
and that was
wow.
it. That was it. There you
That's
go,
so
kids.
sweet. I
Yeah.
actually don't remember that at
It's
all.
okay.
But it's really,
I don't
really
remember.
sweet.
I just remember I just have I have a vision literally of you coming down, and I remember saying like, "You're in Miss Munich's class, aren't you?" And you're like, "Uh-huh," like just like that, like in that little like 5-year-old sort of voice, like,
Yeah, I was eager to make friends.
Yeah, and
Right at the
I
start.
just remember us walking to school together, and then I remember being kind of disappointed that you lived so close by, and you weren't in my actual class, and you never were until I guess you were in Miss Bradley's class, and
Mhm.
is that like right when you had started Blue Bond a little bit,
Probably.
or does Blue Bond come in
If
a
we're
little?
talking 3rd grade, then I was doing lessons. I was
Okay,
learning. I was
yeah,
having
yeah.
drum lessons for sure.
Yeah, because I guess in 3rd grade I probably would have already been in the band program by then.
You were in it much earlier than I was.
because I started Blue Bond like 2nd grade
Mhm.
ish. Yeah.
Blue Bond Guitars, to those who don't know, is a music school along with a guitar shop.
Yeah.
Originally located on South Street, 4th and South,
Mhm.
now relocated to Sansom.
Samson. I think it's
Sansom and
17th and Samson. If not, this will be edited in there, folks.
Yeah.
The Sansom part was correct, but it's actually between 15th and 16th on Sansom, so very close.
And it is run by amazing people, and they teach all kinds of instruments.
Yeah. They teach
and
voice,
vocals.
Yeah. They teach keyboards. They teach bass guitar,
Drums.
Yeah, we should shout out our teachers. Mr.
Yeah.
Mark Ludwig. He was
Mark
my
Ludwig.
amazing guitar teacher.
And Jeff Redaganda
Oh yes.
was my first drum teacher, along with Charlie Heim, who
Good
is my
old
second drum
Charlie. And we
teacher.
also should shout out Mr. John Fay.
Mr. John Fay. Mr. John Fay is the reason why I would say we're in a band in the first place.
100%.
We talked about it. You talked about it briefly.
Yeah.
But yeah, we joined the band program. You were already in it.
Yeah,
I joined it later.
I guess I had probably been in it about 2 or 3 years by that point. And I remember because I had talked to Joanne. Shout out Joanne.
Shout out Joanne.
Because here's the real story. This is the real story of how Emmet and Gideon became very good friends. So I remember 6th grade had just started because the band program was starting up because I remember this because it was September, right, when the fall program would start up. And it was like, first week back at school or whatever. I'm like hanging out with Joanne at Blue Bond after school with my lesson. And at this time, actually, coincidentally, I had been playing with Jameson and John Hay.
Mm-hmm.
And coincidentally, I actually just spoke to John Hay about 2 days ago because it was his birthday. And I just
wow.
wished him happy birthday.
That's
and we just
sweet.
had it was like my first time talking to him in a little bit. I just said, hey, hope everything's good in Memphis. So anyway, shout out to you two people. You guys are probably the also reason why we were in a band.
So true.
So yeah, I had been playing with them for about 3 years at this point, and we had rotating drummers. John Fay would play with us sometimes. Cameron would play with us too. Yeah, and it was just like I don't know, for some reason I think I remember just like recommending like to Joanne. I think Joanne was just like being like, all right, well, like who could we have like play? And I don't know if Jeff, because I would talk with Jeff a lot too about stuff, and because everybody at Blue Bond was super close. So I don't know if he was in the room at the time when we were having this conversation, but I remember just being like, could Gideon like play drums like with us? And because I remember like I talked with you about it like before you had joined me, like, oh yeah, Jeff was like super cool about it. He was like, he should do it. Because I remember like talking with you about it in school.
Yeah.
And then 2-3 days later, I remember the first song we played together was Down on the Corner.
Down on the Corner.
There you go.
CCR.
Creedence Clearwater.
Yeah.
So there you go. And we also because we were in the same homeroom.
Yeah,
Mr.
we were.
Piazza's
Mr.
class.
Piazza.
And we had I remember the way it was, at least for like the first period of the year, we were next to each other.
Yes, we were.
It was like an L shape, and it was like, but in that line, it was you, me, and Spencer, and Fred. I'll never forget that. And I remember,
yes.
and I remember this at like this little like there was like a little like lip around us, and right there was Estelle.
Estelle, shout out Estelle.
The gang was really together.
Look at all these shout outs.
Yeah.
I knew this was going to happen as soon as I had Emmet on the podcast. I was like, there's going to be a lot of people we're mentioning.
And I specifically remember, and I'm sharing this, and I don't know if I'm saying this retrospectively, but probably a little bit of both. But I remember like being in that corner. It was like Estelle. She was new there too that year, and she was weird as hell in a cool way.
In a cool way,
yeah. So yeah,
we
it was a good way for me to be like, okay, I got this friend who I'm in a band with outside of school, and I got like, it was definitely, that was a period of me being like, I mean, I always
self-assured.
Yes, and I wanted to say this. I never had like, I don't want to say identity problems. Like I never tried to adapt to be like another person. Like I always was like, I'm weird. I'm gonna own it. If kids think I am, whatever. I may get offended by what people say to me, but I don't care about really what people thought of me. Like, oh, this kid likes music, like yada yada. Like I never do. Whatever.
Yeah.
Like But it made me just be like, okay, I can feel more comfortable just about talking with people about whatever. And I think maybe I was just. I don't know. I like I said, I was definitely not shy or quiet. I just didn't like to.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably something
you were unapologetically yourself.
Yeah, and I think when you're
which
like
I admire about you.
Yeah, but when you're like that as a young age, you're a very easy target.
Exactly.
Anyway.
But yeah, we were in a band together, the Wilders.
Yeah.
Is what we called it because Emmet looks like Gene Wilder.
There you go.
That is the reason.
That was always said by Rich Chodak.
Yes.
Got a shout out to Rich, the owner of Blue Bond.
Owner of Blue Bond.
The person who makes this place run.
So true. Yeah.
Good
and
guy.
Then we played a few shows together.
Yeah.
Then
quite a few.
A lot. And then
a lot of covers, which I always say, if you want to make music, if you want to write your own music, the good thing to know is a lot of good songs already.
Yeah.
Whatever that your definition of good is. Just know a lot of songs. And I think that helps us because we did a lot of, Bowie, Doors, Beatles, The Who. I mean,
classic rock.
Lots of list goes on and on. I think when you have that knowledge of, okay, this is how songs go. And we would also do, stuff that was like, challenging. We wouldn't just do like, your standard verse chorus. We would do like, I'm trying to think of like weird stuff, but like stuff like Paperback Writer, stuff where it's like a lot of like harmonies or like, stuff like I'd have to look at some of the videos. I'm on the spot now.
Yeah.
Like we would adapt songs. Do Doors songs. We don't have an organ player. Like stuff like that. And I think that taught us definitely how to be in a band. Really.
For sure.
Yeah. Truly.
Because at that point, we had been doing it for so long, and then by the time we got to high school, and GAMP is a very interesting school in the sense that we were in a musical environment.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't necessarily push it to be like Kappa level.
Yeah.
Like
I will say this.
Art school.
Totally. Yeah. I will say this about GAMP, and there is a majority, at least when we were there was a majority of people there that were very much creative types.
Yeah, artists, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Very talented people. We were lucky to have been in small populations of students where we got to know everybody.
Yeah.
And people got to know us. And so during that time, we decided to just write songs together and make a band.
Yeah.
And we pulled people along with us that were interested musically. And what is it now? Like 6 years?
6. It'll be 7 in September. 7 in September. Woo! Yeah.
7 years of the Jet Planes.
Going strong.
And I would, as although I find myself a founder, it is very much pushed by your vision.
I appreciate that.
Because I will absolutely say that you are a huge factor in like my musical taste. You influenced that heavily, as well as my performance regarding music.
No, I
I
know
think.
what you
And
mean. Well, thank you. I don't think you've ever told me that.
yeah,
That means a lot. I
yeah,
really appreciate that.
and so I think with that, and with almost 7 years of this band under our belt, with a lot of different music and releases and songs written, and iterations of the band,
Oh yeah.
I want to just deep dive into your process
Sure.
because you're a musician, you're a
Yeah.
guitarist, you're a writer, and
Mhm.
I would argue for the longest period of the Jet Planes, the primary writer.
Yeah.
As
Yeah,
much as I
yeah.
enjoy writing music, it is not my
Yeah.
forte,
Yeah, I gotcha.
because you think much more melodically.
Yeah.
And alongside that, to sort of go off of what you were saying before, when you want something, you make it happen.
Yeah.
I don't know a lot of people that can do it as well as you can because you
Thanks, man.
truly,
Appreciate that a lot.
yeah, you
Thank
truly are like, I want to make this thing,
Yeah.
and then you just do it. Like it's not an easy feat because I've tried doing that.
Yeah.
And hence this podcast now existing.
Yeah.
But yeah, from the get-go, you've had that drive,
Yeah.
and thus the band is able to exist.
And I'll just say this now, as much as Gideon's hyping me up, which I really appreciate, I would say right now, not even just for what you say this, I am very happy with just, I mean, it's only been like, I don't want to call it a legacy because it's only been a little bit of time, but just for what we've done in just a little period of time for just something that started. So I'm just like, all right,
Yeah.
not bad.
From
Not
Gamp,
bad, yeah.
from Gamp talent shows,
Yeah.
to now playing actual venues.
Yeah.
I just want to know, like, how you approach it. Like, your inspirations are clear.
Yeah.
But from that,
Yeah.
how do you approach writing a song? Who do you make them for?
Yeah.
Like, literally just break it down
Sure,
for
yeah,
us,
yeah.
because just break it down for us.
Yeah. So when I took these art history classes and this professor said, like, art is just short for artifact, it made me realize that, there's really no boundaries at all with songwriting in some way. So I guess in some way, I don't really have an actual process. It comes down to the fact is literally anything can inspire me. And I'll give you an example. Like, and I think when I was taking these art history classes and movie classes, because I was a film major at Drexel for a brief time, folks, it, it sort of showed me like how to tell a song.
Like story structure.
Yeah, well, that's the perfect way. And I think it made me, when I started taking these art history classes, they teach you a lot about just like everything. Like, for art, there's things like, chiaroscuro and whatever. And, for movies, there's things like that. And for movies, there's so many layers too for things that you have to learn about. Like there's sound, there's the story itself, there's how the scenes play out, there's the shots and everything. And to me, that's kind of very similar to how you would write a song. It's like, okay, do you want it to start with the chorus? Do you want it to start with just drums? Do you want it to start with, there's layers to that too in some way.
Sort of approaching it with a storyboard
Yes,
sense.
exactly. Yeah,
Cool.
in a visual sense too.
Yeah.
And art and film really sort of made me view writing in a new way in that sense, because
Gotcha.
I was sort of learning. I mean, as much as I obviously knew a lot about art and film, I never really had these sort of experiences learning about it on this kind of level where I would for something like music, because I'm, obviously making a career out of that for the most part. But when you learn about these things, that's where you realize that all the arts are really similar. And because of that, that can kind of, make songwriting endless, because, what could start as a song could equally be like a poem, a picture, a movie, a play, or anything. It all could be, a quote, anything, a sculpture. And to me, when that professor, his name is Dr. Joseph Gregory, he's a great guy. Hope he's still there and doing good. He, when he said that, I was like, it literally kind of just changed my whole, view of just how I wanted to be a creative person, because it's like, there's no rule book for any of that stuff for songwriting. And I think that's why, it's kind of just why I see songs, not just as a visual sense, but you can find many ways to write a song. And I think I would say I do have many ways for how I go about writing. Like I could hear, like, I heard some roller skating music, with an organ in a movie, and I was like, all right, well, let me do something with that, because that's cool.
You draw inspiration.
Yeah,
from
like
everything
things like that.
point.
Yeah, and you can find a story from, that's what I mean. I think by learning things about art history, which is literally the bare basics of everything, like how, because when you're learning about history and time, you're learning about how people and civilization's view, art and why it is being used in a sense, for love, political purposes, whatever.
Yeah.
And I think when you just learn about that, you then can apply it to your own art. And I don't know if it makes it better, but it just changes you, and it makes it new perspectives, which is always what I like. I like learning new perspectives on how to, because if you do the same thing again and again, you don't get anywhere.
Right.
Yeah, it gets boring after a while. Yeah.
And to that point, I think, the Jet Planes has been your main musical project for a hot minute now.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
And I think we've been able to tackle different perspectives and try different stuff, because the style of music that we play, I think, has stayed true to itself.
Yeah.
But evolved and morphed and changed, especially based on who's in the group.
Well, yeah, too. And it's funny, and I did not think about this at the time, obviously, but now especially, I very much see each of our albums, and I, sort of include the record that we did with Harry.
Yeah.
They really are sort of like cinematic in a way, because they sort of channel different aesthetics, is probably the best word I could use. I see in the movies is like, all right, this was like, an amalgamation of everything I think that you and I basically had for, not just the Wilders, but also just, from playing, obviously during an X amount of time. And then obviously the thing we had with Harry was what we had. And then now we have this, but they're all different in a way. And because of that, it's like, you can branch out and see, different styles, but it is very much, I would say, in the same panel.
Yeah.
Or what you want to call it, square. And I'm always for making that square bigger. That's
True.
what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, true.
That's
Absolutely.
yeah.
Clearly we're inspired by the greats of the 60s and 70s, and I think that we have made ourselves stand out for that reason.
Oh yeah.
Which is nice.
Yeah.
Why is that? Like, why were you so gravitated to them from like day one? And
that's a good question.
Yeah.
I think probably because the 60s and 70s, it comes at a time when, kind of similar to today, unfortunately, where there's a lot of civil unfairness, and there's also a lot of technological advancements happening at the same time simultaneously. And I say that today with our country and AI.
Yeah.
I don't think it's quite the same as the 60s, obviously, but I think it definitely mirrors it. And when you hear that stuff from those times, you can tell that it really did kind of, you can trace that stuff to literally artists of today. I mean, you can trace someone like Chappell Roan to someone like David Bowie.
Yeah.
And someone like that. You could trace, someone like Billie Eilish to, like, even I sometimes think a lot of her songs sound like early goth records in some ways, especially, some of her lyrics and the way her writing is. I don't think, her fans might not think of her like that, but at least I think of her music like that a lot.
Right.
And I think that's her, her influences are Beatles and lots of 60s and 70s stuff. And, I don't think everybody would, know that just by listening to her. But when you go back and you say, listen to, I don't know, a Bowie record or, a Kinks album, you go, oh, I can kind of see where maybe so-and-so would have taken that. And I don't really think you find another sort of period where that sort of, like, I'd say the 50s definitely is the pinpoint for it, because you got Elvis, you got Chuck Berry, but then obviously the 60s come along and you have things like, you have the baby boom, and then you have the things like, obviously, the civil rights era come along, which I think is obviously the number one thing that really is what makes the music different, because really what makes the music so damn good is honesty, and it's just writing about
beliefs.
Your beliefs and your and introspective stuff. I think a lot of is what that 60s and 70s stuff is, whether subtle or not, whether you're writing about, yourself as a gnome, or you're writing about yourself in a first person and your blue jeans or whatever. But that's what I liked about it. And not to say that music went away from that or anything, but to me, that's where it's like, you can really just hear what they're saying about so clearly and so honestly right when you hear it. Whether it's like, Sly Stone. I just watched the documentary too.
By Questlove. Yeah.
Yeah. Philly guy right there. Another one.
True.
And, same time period, even just a song as simple as Dance to the Music, which is one of the earliest songs I can remember from my life, to really, like, when I heard in preschool. It's like a song that's so simple as that. What's this? The song's about dance music. What's about? Let's just all get together, have fun, because music brings everybody together, regardless of whether you're black, white, rich, poor,
Yeah.
got 3 legs. We like music. Everybody likes music.
Everybody
and we can
likes
agree on
music.
that. And that's what, that's where I think a lot of those songs can just resonate with anybody. Because, if you played that song to a 4-year-old, how could they not want to just dance to the music? That's what I mean.
Right.
And I think that's kind of why. Because all that stuff I just remember hearing just, around the house growing up, obviously. And I'm just like, I wanted a lot of it. And I never left. I obviously have a lot of it. Yeah.
And we want to make music that
Yeah.
makes people happy.
Yeah. And I think I write definitely. And, I think I just try to write in that style too, where, I definitely say that I can write, in a style where, okay, I'm going to write about a situation, but maybe I'm going to write about it oblique, like Mint Candy or whatever. Or maybe I have a song like Look Back, where I'm going to write it very truthfully and about just, my thoughts and what I'm feeling and introspective stuff. But I think it's going to be told through the way somebody can understand it, listen to it, in a narrative way versus like, a metaphoric way or some way. But I think a lot of the 60s music does that.
Totally.
Like Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, or about like Paperback Writer, or always goes back to the Beatles, folks.
Yeah. Always does.
But yeah.
Emmett's extensive vinyl collection.
Yeah, too many.
Too many.
Too many.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, man. I agree with everything you said.
Thanks, dude.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
So Emmett, this is a question I like to ask everybody, because I think it's a quick and easy personality test.
Sure.
Off the top of your head, favorite film?
The original King Kong.
There it is. Quick, easy.
There you go.
Original, as in like first one.
The one from 1933. Yep.
Dang, man.
Yep.
Explain, please.
So, I think it has a lot of meanings. Not that all movies do, but to me, it kind of has a lot of what I like in a movie, in which there's great cast, there's great music, there's a monster, which I like.
Love a monster.
It's not a musical, but there's good background
underscoring,
yeah, which I love about it. And the story to me is brilliant because it kind of goes back with what Gideon and I were talking about earlier, coincidentally, in that in some way one of the messages of the movie is sometimes you got to do really crazy things to achieve your dream, because really what the whole movie is about is this guy is a director and he wants to get Kong, and
he wants a great movie.
Yeah, and I think in some way, and I always, and I've thought about this a lot since film school, but specifically with Kong, which I don't really consider it a horror movie. I always sort of considered it, if I'm going to classify it, I guess maybe I'd call it like an adventure movie.
Yeah.
Because
it's an epic.
You go from New York, you go to, and that's the other thing, 30s New York. Oh, the aesthetic in that, I just love it. It's
That's true.
It's something about it too. I just it's just great. And when they're in the coffee shop scene and in the beginning, and it's just so, and they're like, how much is that? Oh, it'd be like 5 cents. I was like, oh, it must be nice. Yeah. so I just it's a period piece. It's definitely of its time. And what I was saying with that is because I think horror movies obviously always reflect, even though it definitely has a sliver of that, I think they always reflect what society is going through in some way. And I think with King Kong, really, and I've noticed this, kind of in some way, it's like, right, if you think about it, you have these, a very powerful, rich man who's going to an island, not of his own, taking something, taking a creature who likes white women and taking him for profit. And what is this gorilla just wants, you didn't dump him, why'd you take him?
Yeah.
And why? Because you want to make a movie, which you can take that from either way you want to go. I mean, obviously, I don't think you should exploit people or hurt people to achieve your dream, but I think you can definitely work hard for it. And I think it definitely just plays up people's fears always. It's just like like don't with people. Like we all are here to just be kind, and like if you with people, it's gonna come literally falling down on you as King Kong, which to me is what I always thought. With the movie, it's just
Wow.
That's
I never thought about it like that.
It's definitely dated in terms of like the tribe scenes and everything. But I I still think the story and the message that it has holds up, which
Yeah.
is why obviously it's been retold, and it's why King Kong is literally in the zeitgeist, which is kind of unique if you think about it too, because it's the first movie really where the star of the film is not a human.
Mm.
Even if it's something
Yeah.
like Frankenstein, there is an actor behind the makeup, or Dracula. And even though there was stop motion movies beforehand too, it's never where the the non-human character is quote the star. So, before Jaws, or
Yeah.
whatever, something like that, or even the effects in Star Wars or things like that too, where you can market or there's a character that you can market and quite literally franchise, even though they didn't really have Kong didn't really have as much of that. It's still, he was a brand, and you could
Yeah.
never kill a brand, which
True.
is,
Hence King Kong being around to
oh
this day.
yeah, and he's part of the he's part of the vocabulary. And I think when I was a kid too, also really young, I still do, and I have this book, and it's like a kid's book, and it's literally it was made in like the 70s. I don't know where my parents got it, and the artwork in it, the illustrations are like colored drawings of the 1933 movie.
Mm.
So, and it's actually funny, and I have a very clear memory of this. When I was a kid, I saw that one and the Peter Jackson remake back to back on Turner Classic Movies. I was probably about 4. I still remember it too. And I had it on VHS because we taped it. This is because we were one of those families that taped our stuff on VHS before we had a DVD. You could DVR it. Yeah. So, and I had that tape for years, and and it's very funny because I had the book, and I had I had the book where it was the black and white movies illustrated for color, and then I had the VHS tape of the black and white movie, and then the remake of the movie in color. So to me, I think that's kind of why it was always just a part of my life in some way.
Yeah.
And I love horror movies too, but to me that one stands out as being, it has so many more levels of just artistic, brilliance on it for the 30s too. Just the music, the sound effects too. Here's a fun fact for you kids. Kong's roar, I think, was a tiger and a lion combined and like a bunch of studio stuff together. I know it was they used some animals. So there's a fun
That's
fact
neat.
for you. And also here's something cool. Wes Anderson, when he made Fantastic Mr. Fox, the stop motion, he specifically wanted real fur on the characters because King Kong used rabbit fur. And the reason why is, and your mom probably knows this, is when you use real animal fur, it leaves an imprint on, like, if you move it around, and if you use like fake fur or faux fur, if the English literatures are listening, it doesn't do that as much. But he wanted to do that because he loved how Kong had that effect. And that's the other thing too. It's one of those movies that's like, it's in the vocabulary. It's influenced,
so many
everybody.
things.
Yeah. And I'm not even, I just think that's little tidbits like that really just, and that's why I also love Wes Anderson too. But
Awesome.
there you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Go check out King Kong.
King Kong,
Yeah.
1933.
If you haven't seen the original, I would argue to say that most people haven't.
Yeah.
Haven't spent the
I
time to
would
go watch
still
it.
also
So
say definitely watch the Peter Jackson version, because I still also think that's just as good of a movie. Jack
very
Black, Naomi Watts, good cast. of
Adrian
people.
Brody.
That's right. That's right. It's a little long though, but it's a good expansion of the 1933 movie, in my opinion. And I think
Andy Serkis.
That's right.
As King Kong. He is the famous actor for Gollum and also Planet of the Apes stuff. But
that's right.
Andy Serkis, love that guy.
That's right.
Cool, man.
There you go.
King Kong.
Planet of the Apes also is another good film series, my favorite.
Big fan of monkeys.
Love gorillas.
Yeah, gorillas are great. Monkeys are great.
Well, they're good. They're close relatives. Gotta make sure they're doing good. Yeah.
So true.
Yeah.
Go listen to our song Fay Ray.
Yeah.
It's on.
Oh yeah.
It's on in the movies.
It's on in the movies,
which we'll plug later.
And here's another songwriting inspiration fact for you. That song was inspired by the first song on the Rocky Horror Picture soundtrack.
Oh.
The science fiction double feature. Yeah, because it's
it
obviously
was.
there's, which to me in mind, I think lyrically, if I'm speaking, that might be my favorite song lyrically, science fiction double feature. I just love the references to the old horror movies, and obviously it's a rock and roll tune. And the line mentions Fay Ray in there, and I was like, there has to be a song about Fay Ray, and there wasn't. And I was like, let's do it.
So true.
There you go.
Hell yeah. Awesome, dude. Well, we talked about the 30s, but why don't we talk about the opposite spectrum of that, going into the future?
The future?
The future. It is 2025.
Oh boy.
And we've done a lot. You've done a lot, and we're
Yeah.
getting into adulthood,
Adulting?
making art, and
Yeah.
moving forward.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to know, like, what do you think your future holds right now? And I know that's a big question, but
Yeah.
ultimately, what are some ambitions,
Well-
plans, goals,
well-
projects, who you want to collab with?
Yeah.
Maybe things that you're excited to promote.
Yeah. So, because with this period in one's life when you're done school and you don't really exactly know what's to come up because there's not really anything planned because obviously anybody can get married at a certain age, but obviously you graduate high school at a certain age. Typically you start college at a certain age, and that can become exciting or frightening for some people because now after all that is done, there's like this big what if. And for me, I'm kind of in this position where it's like, okay, well, I have a band that's in a very great position now. Every rehearsal I say this to you, I'm so happy. But especially like just 2 days ago, we were just like, yeah, you got the blah, blah, blah. I was just like, this is awesome. And we just had a simple rehearsal. And to me, like things like that just make me feel, I don't even know what it is, just good.
Just good.
Just good, yeah. And I think obviously, I think I plan to see myself working with you and your Brody for
sure.
a decent amount of time, especially since it sounds like your brother definitely wants to stay local from how he was talking the
Toby.
other day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I personally just want to keep going on making music for the people, and
sure.
with the people, whether it's with you guys or it's with myself or my, friends that I, meet down the road or whatever.
You find yourself now with sort of two different job opportunities, right? Because
Yeah.
like currently you're working at Repo Records.
Oh yeah.
So if you want to go see Emmet,
Come on down and visit me.
working at a record store, the classic Repo Records on South Street.
It's a great place.
How's that affected you, I guess, when it comes to looking at your future as like a musician and like being around these people that are also doing that,
No, yeah.
making some cash on the side,
Yeah,
working with
definitely.
music?
Yeah, I would say working at Repo, because of the way, and this is one of the reasons why I think they are so great is because they really carry on the old school record store aesthetic, like a record store chain, like a Tower Records or like an HMV or one of those, discontinued places would have done. And that like you go there, there's posters, there's CDs, there's records, we sell concert tickets, like we do raffles for things like that, prizes for where you can when we bring in artists, concerts like that. And it's I've never really had that sort of side of the music business in a sense, and it is sort of a little part of it because in a way it's sort of, as a record store, you're kind of seeing the foundation of like, okay, what's being popular right now. And coincidentally, not just because I worked there, I started working there like in 2024, but it was, as many writers are now saying, it was a really good year for music. And I worked there right when Chapel Roan or Charlie XCX Chapel Roan album had been out a year, but it was very popular obviously this year and it sold a lot, so I got introduced to their stuff. Charlie XCX, I've been able to, I often think I don't think I consider myself the best in terms of keeping up with modern pop music, but especially with working at Repo, I've very much been able to. And not just because it's been a really great year, but it's also helped that I've been working at a record store to have these things where, for the first time ever, I I listened to like the majority of all the records that had been up for the best album. I listened to the Beyonce album, Sabrina Carpenter, Caro, all that, and all this stuff.
awesome.
Yeah, and whether that comes from working at Repo or just comes from I think it really comes from that because I'm exposed to it a lot more. Whether I just I'm seeing it essentially.
Right.
Whether it has to just be me from working at Repo, or whether just because it was a great year in music, it just happens to be a coincidence. So because of that, I've kind of been able to see like, okay, I don't know exactly what I have taken from it 100%, but I've definitely been able to see, how artists promote themselves through that, what's popular, what is going to come next, if that makes sense. And I think because since I'm at a record store, I'm kind of able to see that because as a music fan and as a music buyer and consumer all my life, I never really sort of had the sense to see it behind the scenes because of the way repo functions. Like I said, because we order a lot of their reissues whenever like we do the record store days. Like we're getting ready for that. Like I'm doing that. So I've been able to see like what's about to come next in some way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I've never been able to do that with the music. And I think I don't know how I'm going to apply it yet to our career. I'm sure in some way it'll come out, but I think it's been a good tool. I should say, yeah.
And on the opposite side of that, on the opposite side of the music production world, instead of the like marketing consumerism, you're working with Mike Lawson a lot. Well, because we're working on an album right now. To those who don't know, I guess.
It's basically
at this point we will have announced it because by the time this episode comes out, we have already been talking about it. In the time that we're recording, we haven't announced it. We've talked about it.
Yeah, we've talked about it.
But we're working on an album, and with that, we've had our trusted engineer, Mike Lawson, helping us out with Sign Studios here in Philly. Shout out Sign, shout out Mike.
And the Giving Groove, their distribution label.
And the Giving Groove
company, I should say. Yeah. The Giving Groove. Yeah.
And you've been working hand in hand with him.
Yeah.
Because you're doing the engineering stuff.
Well, I should say that I, in terms of, as a musician, you kind of got to find a lot of traits to sort of support yourself in some way, if that makes sense. Whether it's arranging like horns or strings or producing, or playing guitar for other people or writing for other people. So by working with Mike, I've been able to see like the science side of it, which I've always had a big passion for. And being able to have that one-on-one experience, you really get to learn a lot about, okay, this is how, this microphone works and it has this kind of thing. And, he's taught me, I've learned a lot about, truly, as I say, the scientist, which is what I usually call Mike sometimes, usually, or the, wizard scientist. Because he, as I always think, there really is no rule book also to engineering either, too. Music, that is, because you can, make something sound sonically. I mean, distortion sounds great on a guitar. Yeah. And it technically wouldn't not sound good on, other things.
Drums.
That's what I mean. Yeah, exactly. Or other things. Yeah, trying to think of, distorted drums sometimes does not sound the best. No. Yeah. It's just true. An orchestra, we'll say. But a guitar sounds pretty damn good. And I think because of that, I've been able to see like, okay, this is how like things work, and there's no rule book to engineering. It's nice to see how other people's tricks of the trade work, and it's like, okay, here's Mike. Let's see how he does it, and then I've been able to apply it to my own. And he's even said this to me before. I mean, I don't know how much he's used any of it, but we learn from each other in some way because it's a lot of one-on-one stuff where it's like, oh, well, what if we did such and such? Ooh, okay, I see what you did there. Oh, turn this and.
A back and forth sort of
exactly.
environment.
He definitely is running the show, I would say.
Yeah.
But yeah, he is an absolutely incredible teacher and an all-around good person, a really great friend, good guy.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, another person who he definitely is a big anchor in the band.
Oh, for sure. We wouldn't have anything out without him. We wouldn't have done anything. Without his support.
We would not have been able to. Sonically, we would not be able to sound as good.
No.
We'd not be able to get pressed on vinyl that good. Oh yeah, no. Yeah, Mike, you are quite literally a big anchor and glue.
Yeah.
Hopefully he'll be on here too.
Yeah, I plan to.
Yeah, I'm sure you got a lot of good to talk about Mike with.
For sure. Here's another question for you, and it's a little bit of a daunting one, but you can take it as simple or as complicated as you want. But I think it's best to approach it in a succinct way. And I think we've already touched on a lot of it. How do you want to be remembered? As an artist, we want to sort of stick around. Yeah. So, what does that mean for you?
Oh, that's a good question. I think just somebody who talked about, I don't know, just what you go through in life, just through his art. I think that I want people to be able to have, what I was able to do is you're able to find music that can relate to you in any sort of moment, whether you're in any sort of emotion. And I always try to, as we talked about earlier, have that in our music, have things that's diverse. And I guess I just want to be remembered as somebody who tried to bring lots of different emotions through people on an artistic level. I guess that's probably the best I could sum it up.
Awesome.
There you go.
Yeah. And with that, I would say that we're just about done the conversation. Done this episode of the pod. So thanks for that, Emmett.
Thanks, Gideon. It's
hey-
great to be on the show.
Thanks for this. This was a lot of fun. I'm glad we got to talk.
This is awesome.
Before you go,
Yeah,
I have, two things.
sure.
One, a chance to promote yourself. Here's your moment to share where people can find you, what you got going on, what you got coming up, all the things you want to plug. Do it right now, and I'll include it in all the
Sure.
bios and things.
Well, my name is Emmet Rigg. That's my tag on Instagram, and I have a TikTok too. I've actually been trying to make more videos regarding the jet planes, which you talked about, which is also where you can find me.
JETTE.
JETTE.
We're on Instagram.
Yeah.
We're everywhere. I
Yeah. Wherever you stream, and you can listen to us wherever. Yeah, Gideon just said wherever you listen to your music. And I guess for the future, I'm just I'm trying to actually I was just about to go into that. I'm trying to actually make with social media, I'm trying to make more
like short form content.
Yeah, short form videos, or just post even just for like something as much as like the single. I'm trying to just make as much posts about it on my personal page as much as the band, because I'm just like, the hell, let's just do it. And also, through working at Repo, I actually have realized that social media, that is kind of like the main, it's a good it's a good way. It's a good way to just reach a broader
audience
area of people. So I've been trying to do that more. So yeah, you can follow me, Emmet Rigg, EMMETRIGG.
All right.
And the jet planes, you can listen to us wherever you listen to music.
Cool. Check us out. We have an album out, In the Movies. That's a full length album.
It's a full length. We got an EP.
We got an EP. We got some singles that recently came out.
Yeah, we got some singles.
Dream Big, 555, and then maybe another by
the time this episode comes out. Who knows?
So just keep tabs. And before you go, I'd love if you could recommend somebody else I could talk to. It doesn't have to be somebody I know, but it can be. It could absolutely be someone that we already share a connection with, but someone that you think would be a fun conversation for this show.
Think about that. I'm trying to think about somebody who we didn't mention.
It could be. I mean, we mentioned a lot of people.
Well, that's what I mean. Like we like who you should have on the podcast? You should have Harry on.
Harry Feinberg. Oh, Harry. Yeah, absolutely. He's not Philly based anymore, but he is from here.
He's from here.
And he's from Jersey.
He's from he's born in Philly, grew up in Jersey,
all over the place.
Spent some time, and I think Harry would definitely consider Harry.
Yeah, I know. I agree.
From the two Philly natives here, we can definitely give Harry the Philly card pass. Yeah.
And he's at Berkeley right now.
He's at Berkeley, and especially if his mom and his dad has always worked at Penn, so I would consider him Philly based. Yeah.
I will absolutely get Harry on here. That'd be awesome.
There you go.
Awesome. Well, Emmett, that's it. Thanks for the conversation. Go follow Emmett everywhere that he mentioned.
Thanks, folks. We'll meet again. Don't know where, don't know when. But I know we'll meet again some sunny day.
Just choose any key, man.
Yeah.
Any key you want.
Well, I'll be back on here again in a couple months with Gideon's younger brother, Tobias, and we'll be talking about your new favorite band.
Yeah, your new favorite band. Thank you to those listening to this episode who spent a part of their day just hanging out with us. Means a lot. I appreciate that. Give us a review, a follow everywhere you are. It really helps out the show. And I was your host, Gideon Caro McDonald. This was another episode of the Philly Phone Book, a podcast archive. Real art is made by real people. Thank your SEPTA drivers, and have an amazing day.